Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Prakash. Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari. Jai Mr. Bhad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya, Ashtotar, the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya, Ashtotar, the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Kokti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 21st day of October 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 2, Contents of the Gita Summarized. Text number 65, on page 131. Prasade sarvadukkanam hanirasyopajaayate prasanna chetaso yashu buddhi paryapatishtete. Prasade sarvadukkanam hanirasyopajaayate prasanna chetaso yashu buddhi paryapatishtete. Prasade sarvadukkanam hanirasyopajaayate prasanna chetaso yashu buddhi paryapatishtete. Prakash. Prasade sarvadukkanam hanirasyopajaayate prasanna chetaso yashu buddhi paryapatishtete. Bhakti Ed. Prasade sarvadukkanam. No, hanir asyopajayate. Hanir asyopajayate. Prasanna chetaso hyashu buddhi paryapatishtete. Prasade, an achievement of the causeless mercy of the Lord. Sarva of all, dukkanam, material miseries. Hanihi, destruction. Asya, his, upajayate, takes place. Prasanna chetasaha, of the happy-minded. He, certainly. Ashu, very soon. Buddhi, intelligence. Pari, sufficiently. Avatishtate, becomes established. Translation. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. No purport, we'll go on. Text 66. Nasti buddhira yuktasya nachayuktasya bhavana nachabhaviyatak shanti ashantasya kutak sukham. Page 132, text 66. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Purport. Unless one is in Krishna consciousness, there is no possibility of peace. So it is confirmed in the 5th chapter, 529, that when one understands that Krishna is the only enjoyer of all the good results of sacrifice and penance, that he is the proprietor of all universal manifestations, and that he is the real friend of all living entities, then only can one have real peace. Therefore, if one is not in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be a final goal for the mind. Disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. And when one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything, then one can, with a steady mind, bring about peace. Therefore, one who is engaged without a relationship with Krishna is certainly always in distress and is without peace, however much he may make a show of peace and spiritual advancement in life. Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna. I'll turn it off now. Thank you. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So again, let's look at the context. This is always helpful. You recall, when we go back to 62 and 63, we have the description there of the, I don't want to say the fall of the jiva, but the, which is a special phrase for falling from the spiritual world, but the degradation of the jiva, every jiva, in the material world, and it's the basic principle of becoming progressively more bewildered by material energy. And it all begins with contemplating the objects of the senses, with the idea of enjoying them. And that's really why we came here, because somehow we developed some envy of Krishna, who is the supreme enjoyer, as we just read, and we didn't take our pleasure in his pleasure. That's really what bhakti is all about. There's this phrase from the Sandarbhas, Prabhupada quotes in the second canto. Let's see if I can recall it. Jiva Goswami gives this a concise phrase that describes bhakti, what really bhakti is. Bhajaniya Parama Purusha, Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukha Matra Swasukatvam. So Bhajaniya Parama Purusha, the worshipable supreme personality of Godhead. Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukha Matra, only in the happiness, solely and exclusively in the happiness of that person. Swasukatvam, taking one's own pleasure. Taking one's own pleasure solely and exclusively in the pleasure of the Lord. That's what bhakti is all about. So we gave up that principle in the spiritual world, and we wanted to have pleasure separately. Well, it's not going to work in the spiritual world. We have to leave. Just like if someone in this temple all of a sudden starts to try to enjoy the facilities and doesn't do anything, does no service, no chanting, can't stay. It's a mini spiritual world, right? So similarly, in the real spiritual world, that's why we're here, you know. Now, ultimately, everything is a creation of God, So even though we're in prison, we're still in his jurisdiction. But we're in a punishment jurisdiction. So the how we enact that is described in 62-63 by contemplating the object of the senses and really developing an attraction for them, and then that becomes lust, unstoppable desire, and then you are able to engage in it. And if you're not, then you get anger, If you are able to engage, that just plants a stronger desire, and you're really hooked. But if not, then you get angry. Bhakta Bob, nice to see you. Krodha vijayate. And then remember what happens with Krodha, sammoha, completely bewildered. You can completely be a wholly different person, right, and do something that you would not ordinarily do. And then from your complete bewilderment, you lose your memory, and from your memory lost, you lose your intelligence, and then you're helpless. On the other hand, so the way to avoid this is this raga dvesha vimuktaisthu verse, which is very important. So here he's saying that vishayan, the word vishayan again, indriyais chadan, even as the senses are moving among their objects, because of your determination and your advanced consciousness. Why don't you want to see a book? Or you don't have your glasses? Okay. Atma varsha vidhe atma. You're self-controlled. You're able to control the self, and therefore even you're free of raga and dvesha, even when you're perceiving the objects of the senses. And I gave Prabhupada's example of walking in Times Square, which has since been dignified, but in those days was a low area. I don't know if you were ever in New York during those times. Did you ever go to New York? You've been there. You remember Times Square? It's kind of, you don't go there. The nice people don't go there. So, but Prabhupada was walking there, trying to sell his books. Completely free of raga and dvesha. And so, atma varsha vidha. How can one get that state of being able to, avoid any allurements or even any repulsion, and just be equipoised? This whole section is about that. Stita di muni. What is the qualities of one whose consciousness is fixed? Even when some unhappiness happens, you're not disturbed. You're able to tolerate. You have this inner equipoise that only comes with Krishna consciousness. So Atmavasha, self-controlled because of following the regulative principles of freedom. This is a very nice phrase. It doesn't just mean the four regs, but it means all of the do's and don'ts of bhakti, and thereby purifying one's consciousness and coming to that point of steadiness, nishta. Prasadam adhigacchati. One gets the prasadam. Now this doesn't mean nice foodstuffs, which is also prasadam, but it means the grace, it means the mercy of the Lord. And that's what we read today. Prasade sarvadukkhanam hanir. By that mercy, by that grace of the Lord, all of your dukkha, all of your happiness in this world is destroyed. Because asya upajayate, what does it say here? Takes place. Prasanna cetasa. Here's this word prasanna, which comes up again and again, and it's a very famous verse in the 18th chapter, as describing the Brahmabhuta platform, is prasanna cetasa. Means you're naturally joyful. The natural joyfulness of the soul, remember, by nature, Satchidananda, we're anandamaya abhyasat, we're full of bliss, like Krishna, because we're part and parcel. But we've lost that. When you try to enjoy separately, then you got to have a material body, which is by nature a source of misery, and also decreases your pleasure potency. You can only enjoy so much, and it's very flickering, very frustrating. But here is prachana cetasa. Your consciousness is naturally joyful. That's part of the prasad, part of the grace of the Lord. And quickly, buddhi paryavatishate, then he's describing again the fixed consciousness. This whole thing is about that. So that was the verse without the purport. Then Prabhupada describes, then Krishna says, how can there be nasti buddhi yuktasya? How can there be transcendental intelligence for one who is not linked to Krishna and Krishna consciousness? You see, there is not any. Na-asti means there is not. That's why, do you ever hear this phrase, the Gnostic? Means they say, there is not God. That's the thing. And Prabhupada took that Gnostic and agnostic. But agnostic is a little less sure. Means, well, I don't know if there's God or not. They may be open to preaching. But the out and out Gnostics, the Pashandis, the atheists, you can't convert them. They're very, very firmly fixed. So we try to avoid them. So nasti buddhi yukta. Nichayuktasta bhavana, one who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness. Now Prabhupada, is unique in his Bhagavad Gita. He puts that in. It's in brackets because it's not in the verse, but that's what he means. Ayukta. Ayukta means, as Prabhupada says right in these word by words, one who is not connected with Krishna consciousness, who is not in Krishna consciousness. That's ayukta, no yoga. Therefore, there cannot be transcendental intelligence, and there can't be bhavana. Bhavana is fixed mind and happiness. And without fixed mind and happiness, how can there be any peace? And without peace, how can there be any sukha, any happiness? So it all begins with linking up one's intelligence to Krishna and Krishna consciousness. That's the idea. And that's what we read. And Prabhupada, he brings in what he dubbed the peace formula. At the very end of the 5th chapter, there's this description which Prabhupada would quote a lot. In fact, I think that is also part of the Reservoir of Pleasure. I think it's in there, the peace formula. So the peace formula is, we all got books, 529. We'll spend 5 seconds of finding it. Last verse of the 5th chapter. And we can chant this together. It's an important verse. This is also, how can there be peace, each of us, and in society as well. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gatpa mam shantamrichati. A person in full consciousness of me. So we're back to, of course, being Krishna conscious as a prerequisite. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So this is a good one to know. And this word suridam, Prabhupada, I think he explains it in the purport, and it's a common word. This, you know how Prabhupada, some of you maybe not know, but if you read his letters, he always ends it with your ever well-wisher. This ever well-wisher is a surit. He explained this word in a recording I heard once in class. So just like in English, we have different words for different kinds of friends, right? You have an intimate friend, or you have an acquaintance. I know him, but we're not very close, like that. So same thing in Sanskrit. You have Sakha, you have Bandhu, you have Mitra. These are different kinds. But Surit is an ever well-wishing friend. He always has your best interest at mind. Basically, you can't really find a friend like that on the material plane. There's almost, there's always a limit, right? And unless the friend is ready to sacrifice his life for you, which is possible. But Krishna, he's always with us. Just try to contemplate. He doesn't abandon us here. He's with us in the heart, guiding us, giving us remembrance, right? And forgetfulness, which is also a great boon. You know what PTSD is? Can't forget some traumatic experience, right? That's a syndrome. It can ruin your sleep and your life. So he lets us forget our previous lives and so many things, even in this life. So, but beyond that, he is trying to give us good instruction. The famous analogy of the 2 birds in the tree, right? So this is in the Upanishads. It's also in the Bhagavatam. That the tree is the body, and the one bird is the soul, the jiva soul, and he's trying to enjoy the fruits of the tree, which is sense gratification, right? He's forgotten all about his friend who's just watching on a branch behind his shoulder. When will he turn to me and take my good counsel and good instruction? So Krishna, as Super Soul, he's trying to give it to us, and we experience that in conscience. There's a certain you want to do it, but I shouldn't do it. The very concept of should and should not is your higher intelligence speaking, which is coming from Krishna, the Super Soul. But if we're rascals and we keep acting and doing bad things, then that voice will die. We won't hear that voice anymore. You become a sociopath. There's no morality anymore. A very dangerous situation. So here, this verse, Bhoktaram Yakatapasam, is just the opposite of trying to exploit this world, understanding that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Now it says of all yagyas and tapasya, of sacrifice and austerities, but everything, in everything that we do. In other words, Krishna is meant to be the enjoyer. Just like this idea of prasadam, with the foodstuffs, The whole thing is, well, that's a basic principle of enjoyment in this world, is eating, right, obviously. So we try to recognize, well, Krishna is the real enjoyer. He's the provider of all these foodstuffs. He's giving me intelligence to prepare it. He's giving me my senses. Everything is really coming from him. So therefore, he should enjoy it first. And he's so kind, we trust, that we'll be able to partake of the remnants. And so that consciousness, it's all in the consciousness. And that, of course, Krishna is there, and he suffuses that prasadam, it becomes prasadam, from bhoga to prasadam. And therefore, it can purify you, and anyone who takes it, even without knowing, there's a purification there, because Krishna is real. So, that's part of the whole point of this verse. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He's the supreme controller, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. And, luckily, he's also the best friend. If he's the controller, like Hiranyakashipu, he became the supreme controller, for a while in this universe. He had all the gods bowing down to him except for Shiva and Brahma. And Narada even said, yes, I was also bowing down. He knew what would happen, but he was bowing down. So the demons tried to supplant Krishna's position. That's basically. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Welcome. So, we have to set up some books. We got some masks. Yeah, sorry about that, but the germs are still out there. So, we're in the, get some books, and we'll be on page 112. Hare Krishna. Just give the gentleman a book. He doesn't need a stand. Okay. Oh, you have your book. Okay. We have some more extra books coming. So the peace formula in the end of chapter 5. Here it says, Ashantasya kutak sukham. How can there be any happiness without peace? Well, it really can't. There can only be flickering sense gratification. But really, that's such a pale reflection of what we really are meant to experience. Because we should always remember that constitutionally, we're meant to be happy. And that's why we're always trying to become happy. And when we get a little pleasure, we think, it was successful, but then it goes. It's temporary in this world, inevitably. So the Bhagavad Gita teaches that we can come to that platform of constant happiness. That's what this word prasanna means, prasanna cetasa, in the previous verse, 65. If we get the mercy of God, then sarva dukkhanam hana, all our miseries will be destroyed. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. So that prasanna cetasa. So the idea is that we haven't tapped into the real source of our happiness. We're taking this flickering sense gratification as being happy, but really that's just binding us more and more into the material world, which is a place of misery. Certainly getting old and getting sick and dying is not happiness, and that's part of the material condition, But Krishna's teaching in the Bhagavad Gita and the whole teaching is that's not natural for the soul. That's unnatural. That's artificial. All of this old age, disease, death, rebirth, which is the first lesson in Krishna, is that doesn't have to be. There's something called liberation or going back home, back to Godhead, where we can regain our natural position of eternal happiness with no birth, no death, the threefold miseries. It's nice to recall those. There's the four basics that are always going to be there: birth, old age, disease, and death. But on top of that, you might not be suffering any one of those, but there might be miseries from nature. We call them adi-daivik. because these gods, control us. I mean, with these fires. Now, of course, the fires. It came from lightning and everything, but it's also a combination of adibautic. Adibautic means other living beings causing you misery. We've all experienced that. Most of the time it's human beings, but it can also be insects. I mean, I don't know. Is this COVID? Is that adibautic? Is it, a virus is alive, right? You're not exactly alive. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Does it really matter? Not really. They can be adidivic. So the idea is they're always threatening, and sometimes they're right on top of us. Adhyatmic. Everything is fine. Beautiful weather, plenty of money in the bank, and my friends are not, posting things on Facebook about me. We're good, But my mind is not at peace, Something for one reason or another. I'm worried about some test I got to take or some job I got to do, and so that itself, your own mind and body, can give you trouble, and nothing from outside. That's called adhyatmic. So we got adidivic, hurricanes, earthquakes, big fires, weather, all these different things. You can't avoid them. They may happen at any time, and then we have to suffer them. That's part of the material condition. Adhyatmic, just get a little older. You have to worry. That's going to come at you, right? And adibautic. I always refer to this play I read. I think Jean Paul Sartre. He was kind of a serious playwright. So he wrote this play called No Exit. And the only thing I remember is that one phrase, hell is other people. You can imagine how depressing that is. I mean, devotees, we enjoy association. I mean, hell is other people. But sometimes it really is if you're with the wrong people. Can't get away from them. They're attacking you on Facebook or something. So those three miseries are always with us or threatening in the material world. Plus, you got the big four: birth, old age, disease, and death. All of it is artificial. It all only because we have these bodies. Now, what do you mean? We have these bodies. Think about it. Don't we say, my hand, my foot, my leg, my mind, right? Who is it who owns those things? That's the soul. That is the soul. If I lose a hand, it's a tragedy, but I'm still me, because I'm not the hand, But eventually you lose the whole body, but you don't die. You never die. I mean, that's good news, isn't it? So, gospel. So what happens? You go to another body. Now, when this body finally breaks down, let's just be honest, it's a machine. When we're young, it's a very nice machine. We can use it, but anything can happen. Eventually, it's going to break down for one reason or another. And then, so it's untenable. The body is an amazing thing. I had an accident the other day, about 2 weeks ago, where I tripped in the alley. I come every morning, and it's dark. It's like 4:20 in the morning. So, as I usually do, I'm chanting all different verses and things and meditating. And so I didn't notice the footing in this alleyway is not perfect. So boom, I slipped and went down. I got to admit, I didn't say Hare Krishna. But anyway, I said something. So I had these, you don't see any of it. I had the big sores on my hands, because you instinctively break the fall. I hurt my knees, and I discovered there was something here that I didn't even know about. And so I couldn't come to the temple. I had to go back to my place, which is about a 2-minute walk, and put, a bandage on here and everything like that. That hadn't happened to me in many, many years. But there it was, so that's dangers at every step. Anything can happen. So the body eventually goes, but the mind it doesn't die. See, you have two bodies. We have this gross body, which we call the body, which we see in the mirror and everyone sees. But we have the invisible body, which is just as important or more important, the mind, the intelligence, discriminating factor, and the ego, the sense of self. This is all explained in Bhagavad Gita and in great deal in Srimad Bhagavatam. And so that mind, we all know we have a mind. We can't see it, right? My mind. Again, it's not you, but it's much, it's subtle. And so that mind is constantly getting impressions and building desires and things that you don't want to have. It's filled with all of these things. So those unfulfilled desires, when you leave the body, those, and in accordance with your karma, it's a complicated affair, and that's why there are higher beings who are watching and making sure you get just the right body. You get another body, hopefully a human body. Now it's wonderful that if you practice even a little bit of Krishna consciousness, like coming to Bhagavad Gita class, you're assured of a human body in your next life. That's great, isn't it? But why settle for a human body? Because that's still a body with the threefold miseries. What we want is the spiritual body. And all of us have that spiritual body, a certain body that we just made completely of spirit, never dies, that's just suitable for serving the Supreme Spirit, Krishna. And that is our natural relationship, full of bliss and eternity. And not boring, but all kinds of variegatedness. So that's what we want to get back to. But we have a choice. As human beings, we can decide what we're going to hear. Like for some reason or other, you decided to come to hear the class tonight. Well, that's very auspicious. It means that you're going to hear about Krishna. There's millions and trillions of other things you could be hearing about or filling your mind with. But if you choose this is the human faculty of intelligence, discrimination. Animals they can't decide. They're already decided for them. This is where the pleasure is. I have to go here, watch out, there's danger, run, or fly away or somehow fight or flight. They're all acting on instinct. They don't have karma. They're not performing any sin for them because they don't have the discriminating factor. But we have a choice, and if we make the right choices, we can develop our consciousness so that when we finally leave this body, if we're Krishna conscious, we don't have to come back again to a material body. We go back to the spiritual world, and we're with Krishna eternally. Just like it's so nice when the curtains open, and you can see the deities, Imagine if you could always see Krishna. He's always there. In other words, this is training the mind and the senses and everything. So that's what this is all about. And Krishna is describing here how peace is so important, but peace is only possible when you get the prasad of the Lord, the grace of the Lord, and that comes from practicing Krishna consciousness, the regulations. That's in text 64. So let's go on. He's describing, as I just mentioned last night, back and forth. By contrast, he's describing where we want to be. Now again he's asking, well, watch out, the senses can take you away. Text 67, bottom of 132. Indriyanam icharatam yanmanon vidhiyate tadasya hadati pragyam vayurnavamavambasi. As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. And by a man he means a human being. Purport: unless all of the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, even one of them engaged in sense gratification can deviate the devotee from the path of transcendental advancement. As mentioned in the life of Maharaj Ambarish, all of the senses must be engaged in Krishna consciousness, for that is the correct technique for controlling the mind. So we all have experience of this. Sometimes your eyes can take you. You see something attractive and beautiful and your whole mind goes to that. Or some sound, attracts your mind. Or repels. I mean, now there's like there's a thing, to take the muffler off the car or something, so that when you drive it makes a huge sound and annoys everybody. I heard that one of the goals is to make the alarms go off in the street, in these cars. And sometimes you hear that. It's sociopathy, right? It's like taking pleasure in others' pain, right? So that's the sound that you don't want to hear, But you have to be equipoised in both. In other words, the point is that, okay, there's an enjoyable object, but that's not part of Krishna consciousness. Enjoying that separately from Krishna. Now, if say you're going through a supermarket or something, and you see a beautiful ripe mango, So what do you think about it? I mean, they want you to buy it, so it's right out there. You may even be able to smell it. Test it. Oh, it's just the right color. It'll be good. It's going to taste good, right? So that's called Maya. When you think, yeah, let me buy this milk, it's 2 for $1, and so you buy it and say, yeah, I'm going to cut it up and eat it, or give it to my friend, whatever. So that's called Maya. That's sense gratification. But a devotee can see that same mango, can also test it and think it's ripe, and think, oh, this would be nice to offer to Krishna. He'll enjoy that. And then there'll be prasadam. He doesn't, he's basically thinking, so there's a different kind of mentality. You can see the different mentality. What is can I give to my dear Lord Krishna? How can I, serve him? And the other is, how can I serve my senses? That's the difference between the mentality that binds you to this world of suffering and that takes you to the world of bliss. So one of the senses, we have all these senses, the eyes, the ears, the tongue, the touch, right? And all of them have their objects of enjoyment. So that's where the discipline comes in. Just like in any yoga process, like the Ashtanga Yoga. You can also learn from that. Yam, niyama. Yama and niyama are the do's and the don'ts. It actually begins with the don'ts. Yama is don't and niyama is do's. Before you actually do something right, you have to stop doing all the nonsense. You know what I'm saying? So yama and niyama, we also have yama and niyama. Things that you accept, just like drugs. Everyone knows the Hare Krishnas don't take drugs. Right? We don't take drugs, we don't eat meat. Right? And then, no gambling, no intoxication, no meeting, no illicit sex. So those are no's. Now, if that's the basic lesson, there's no way anyone's going to follow that. It has to be with the do's. What do I do? Oh, we have plenty for you to do. Prabhu, here, take these beads. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, good, good. So the whole consciousness becomes purified. And you can find such pleasure in serving Krishna. Beginning with hearing his name, chanting and hearing his name. That's the full program. This is why we're all sitting here, because in this age, this process has been given. It's very effective. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Kevalam, Kalo, Nasteva, 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 Gataranyata. This is the first verse that many devotees learn because it's so easy. It's repeated. Hare Nama, the holy name of Krishna. So I put in a little poem. If you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age, when dissension and chaos abound, who can deny it? Dissension and chaos abound everywhere. Perfect description. Kali Yuga. Everyone's fighting. Kali means fight. Well, if you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can ever be found but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever unto your lotus feet bow. So that last line is not part of the verse, but I added it in there to fill out the poem. But it's important mood of chanting. Because why is this age so good for chanting? Because we're so helpless here. Nobody's going to practice Ashtanga Yoga because you got Yama and Niyama, and then you have Asana. Even that, getting to the point of being able to sit like this for any length of time. I used to practice yoga. I got to the point where I could sit maybe for 10 minutes in full lotus, and my knees. Have you ever tried it? The knees go. Okay, good. I'm a yogi now. But then just the first three, the sitting asana, then pratyahara. You got to withdraw the senses. But now you're sitting there like that. What does it withdraw the senses? It means the thoughts. Withdraw your mind from sense gratification. Try it. That's where your mind wants to go. As soon as you. So it's impossible in this age. But we have to be yogis. We have to control the senses, we have to control the mind. How is it possible? So this bhakti process is there. And the whole idea is that when we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We're meant to do so in a mood of supplication. Prabhupada said it's simply a call for Radha and Krishna, and please engage me in your service. Just like a child calling for its mother, I like to give my little example from my own life. I grew up in Long Island, New York, and during the summer, my father he would take us all to the beach, a 10-minute drive from where we lived. It's an island, And summertime, it's hard to find a place to put your blanket down. That's how crowded it is. So we're all singing, and inevitably, some kid would get, some little baby toddler, you know, but mobile, he would get separated from his mother or something, you know, and he'd be walking around screaming, you know. And the lifeguards, they had a big stand. You know, each one had a stand so they could see out in the ocean and jump in if someone's. So they would get the kid up and they would show the kid. He's yelling, you know, here, and of course the mother find, oh, there he is, you know, and so she would run and there would be. You know. So that mood of a child calling for its mother in helplessness, that's how we should chant Hare Krishna. But if we had big strong bodies like, you know, in Dwapara Yuga, in previous yugas where they lived 1,000 years, 10,000 years. You know, and we wouldn't feel so helpless. But if we understand our situation, yeah, you know, anything can happen at any time. This is such a dangerous age. I don't live very long. That's a big thing. So this age is sought after by the Devas. They want to take birth here. Because especially Lord Chaitanya, Krishna came just 500 years ago as Lord Chaitanya to teach this process, to give out the highest thing. It's not even liberation. It's prema. Love of God. He's giving it out freely. But you have to chant. You have to, you know, absorb your mind. And the chanting is so purifying. If you do it in the right mood and concentrate, immediately you'll feel, you know, transcendent. And you'll experience some of the bliss of chanting. And that's just a taste of what's to come if you practice. So in this age, all of the things that Krishna will describe here, the steady mind, the prasadam, the prasanna cetasa, can come with bhakti yoga, and that's why Prabhupada he inserts this. One who is not connected with the supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence. That's not in the verse, but he put it in here. Okay, but here the danger is even one in the senses. If you let it go out, you know, then it can take your consciousness away, just like a powerful wind on a boat. So therefore, the process is there's something for all the senses. You know, you can see the deities, you can hear, you know, the holy name, that's the Bhagavad Gita, and you can chant it, that's another sense. And during the artik, you can feel the flame, right? The touch is there, and of course the incense is there, the flowers. All the senses can be connected to Krishna. And therefore you can stay in peace. So now we come to a Tasmad verse, therefore he's winding up his argument, his lesson here. 68. Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashaha indriyanindriyartebhyas tasya pragya patishtita. Therefore, O mighty armed Arjuna, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence. Purport. One can curb the forces of sense gratification only by means of Krishna consciousness or engaging all the senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As enemies are curbed by superior force, the senses can similarly be curbed, not by any human endeavor, but only by keeping them engaged in the service of the Lord. One who has understood this, that only by Krishna consciousness is one really established in intelligence, and that one should practice this art under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, is called a sadhaka, or a suitable candidate for liberation. So I want to share one other verse, which is pretty amazing. The Sanskrit is such an incredible language. That's why it's called Sanskrit, because Sanskrit means beautifully composed, you know. And so in the 87th chapter of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana, there is most of the chapter is taken up with these prayers of the personified Vedas. Before the creation, these prayers take place. So this prayer is exactly pertinent to what we're studying here. So this personified Upanishad, he's praying to Mahavishnu, and he says, and I'm not going to ask you to repeat after me because it's kind of long. He says, Twadanupatam krulai midamapma sarit priyavat chatati taton maketi hite priyatmanicha nabadadamanta ho asadapasana hano yadanushayabhame urubaye kusharir brata. So this is a verse that says where, my dear Lord, this human body is perfectly suited for serving you. Among all different bodies, you can see there's over 8 million of them, different species. So Tvadanupattam Kulayamidam Atma Surit Priyabhach. And when one serves you with this body, then the body becomes one's best friend. This word surit is there again. Because it's paraphernalia for serving Krishna. How could we glorify Krishna? We didn't have the tongue and a voice. How could we do any service? We didn't have the hands, you see. So you appreciate it. Oh, it becomes your best friend, you see. And you, on your side, you're really the best friend, the super soul within the heart. You're giving the intelligence, the encouragement, and everything's nice. But the third line says, Napatadamantaho asadupasanayatmahano. That those who don't take their pleasure in serving you in this way, they worship the impermanent, asadupasanaya. Just like in the Bible, worshipping mammon, right? We're worshipping this temporary world, and thus committing spiritual suicide. You can't really kill yourself, but you can postpone for a long time. It's equivalent. And what happens? Then, in efforts to please this body, they wander in different, very fearful bodies and difficult bodies, and are condemned to who knows how long, suffering in this world. So this is exactly what Krishna is teaching. We have a choice as human beings. The other animals don't have a choice, and most of the human beings don't even know they have a choice. You know, but if you read a little bit, you associate with devotees, you chant a little bit, then you realize there is a real process here to elevate the consciousness. And so now what am I going to do? You know, I'm already habituated to acting in this way, which I know is entangling me more now in a life that's going to be suffering. But here's this other path, but it's going to take some work and austerity. But what doesn't in this world? You know, suppose you want to get an education, you know, a college education. Well, now especially it's difficult because they don't have the classes, but even if they did, you have to put out so much money, you have to go into debt, you have to study, you have to not party all the time, which you want to do, right? Otherwise you'll fail. Right? So there's do's and there's don'ts for anything you want to. Suppose you want to become an athlete or a musician or anything. There's always some do's and don'ts. And you have to have the desire and maintain the desire and see the benefit at the end. Right? But anything that you aspire to do in this world is ultimately a failure. Because ultimately you're going to leave the body, and all your efforts and all your honors, all your prizes and all your degrees are going to be left behind. But the real thing we should strive for, we should know what we should strive for, and that's what the book is all about, is a transformation of consciousness back into our normal consciousness, which is full of love for God, which is eternal. The things we try to love in this world, it's all desperate reflection of that love. And it's very tragic, because it must come to an end. You know, the object leaves, or we leave, or because there's change. But once you get back to that spiritual world, that's the world of Sat Chit Ananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. And we have to trust in it because of our great line of realized souls. I'm not giving you anything that's not in the Bhagavad Gita, that hasn't been given by Srila Prabhupada, who was taught by his spiritual, all the way back to Krishna. And you know, they don't have any motive to lie to us. Prabhupada came to America, you know, not to make money, to start a business, but to give the knowledge, to find some souls who would receive it. He's moved out of compassion, out of love, you know, because you see Krishna in everyone. And the tragedy is people don't realize it. They have this treasure in their hearts. So he did it, and you know, he came with, you know, just imagine. I mean, this here's his he was actually 69 when he arrived, but his health wasn't the greatest, you know, and he had a couple of heart attacks on the way. And he didn't really have any people there to greet him, and he had only $7. Yeah, no, he had maybe 20 by that time, because he sold a set of his books on the boat to the captain. So here he is, you know, a Bengali gentleman, retired, you know, with basically no contacts, no money. He had a return ticket if he wanted to go there, you know, if you go back, but that wasn't what he came for. So what was his motive? He wasn't trying to start a business, you know, he wasn't trying to, you know, hoodwink people so that he would be a great yogi, make a lot of money. They do that sometimes. He was really out for, and he proved it in the next 12 years. Because even though by Krishna's grace he became greatly successful, he had thousands of young, intelligent men and women who were ready to do whatever he wanted. He had control of, at one point, over millions of dollars. But he never stopped traveling and doing austerities and keeping the headache and working, making things happen in society. In other words, he never retired, really. So finally, the body gave out. He went to Vrindavan and left his body. So the point is that it was genuine. He proved it was genuine. And the same thing, if you study the lives of the previous acharyas, a line of disciples and gurus, you see that they all had the same thing. They had the realization, and they were moved to try to give the treasure to others. And so, with the faith that that's for real and it's not some scam, we practice Krishna consciousness, and we get some result. It's not that you have to wait till you die to experience it. There's already, even in this COVID madness, there's a different mindset amongst the devotees who are practicing seriously. I don't see anybody, my God, what's going to happen? But I know that there's so much despair out there. There's so much anxiety and fearfulness. That's the nature of this material world. So even on the material benefits are great, but the spiritual benefits are infinite. So we should try to take it up. Okay, there's a few minutes, and we'll resume. We're going to finish the chapter next week early. I think we're in text 68. Yeah. So, but I have this poem that I wrote, and it just illustrates how we got to this world and how we can get out. It's called The Fall and Redemption of the Soul. And there's a few words, because you'll hear why. The rhyme scheme is a little bit strange. But does everyone know what cupidity means? Cupidity is actually, obviously, it has its origin in Cupid, sex desire. But cupidity has come to mean greed. So think of it as a nice combination, 50-50, lust and greed. And then there's the idea of sagacity means wisdom, and volatility. Now volatility can mean different things, but any scientist knows the rate at which something evaporates. So volatility means here today, gone tomorrow. In other words, it can be, your treasure can be volatile. And maybe that's the only ones. Brevity, of course, Okay. All right. Where Krishna lives, felicity. Felicity is happiness, Where Krishna lives, felicity abounds. With pure simplicity and loving sensibility, all serve him with humility. But when a living entity rejects his true identity and out of sheer stupidity surrenders to cupidity, he loses all sagacity and with it all capacity to understand reality or curb his sensuality, which is what we're talking about. Abandoning humility, he touts his own ability, forgetting his fragility and fortune's volatility. Immersed in asininity, stupidity, immersed in asininity for what seems an infinity of lives devoted to piety, he suffers in anxiety till contact with God's devotee, perhaps of utmost brevity, awakens his affinity for words of the divinity. Perceiving the futility of all his imbecility, the soul regains his sanity and casts away his vanity. Endowed with new humility, he serves with all ability and growing spontaneity his guru and the deity. Regaining his identity, the wayward living entity returns to the fraternity of Krishna for eternity. So this is our little story. All of us are in this reverse parabola, one place or another. We've all encountered the devotee. Now we have to take it seriously and awaken our affinity for words of the divinity. That's what the class is all about. Okay, well, it's only 8:08, so we have time for one or two more. So here's a nice little prayer. There's this great lady devotee named Queen Kunti, very intimate devotee of Krishna. She was his aunt, actually, relationship. And when after the Battle of Kurukshetra, and the Pandavas won, and it's all over, and Krishna's ready to go back to Dwarka, where he lives on the west coast, so where the Hastinapur was in the middle where Delhi is, so it's a long trip. They wouldn't see him again. So she is offering these prayers, and at the end of her prayer she has this beautiful verse that we can also offer to Krishna. Tvaime ananya vishaya matir madhupate sakrit ratamud vahataradha gange vaugamudanvati. O Madhava, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to thee. Very nice prayer. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. What happened to Alex tonight? He's engaged.
Norton is engaged, and both engaged and is engaged in some project with the computer.
All right, because I heard the engine going. I think it's cooling, right?
It's cool.